patience. Welcome, everyone. So good to see you. Good to see some familiar faces and meet some new people here. Welcome to National Volunteer Week, organized by the Career Advising and Transition Services, known as CATS. This session is in collaboration with the McGill Community for Lifelong Learning. My name is Emily Salvi, and I'm here from the CATS team. I just want to introduce, we have also two other members from the CATS team, if you just want to say hello.
Hi.
Hi, everyone.
So Diana and Nayo. I'm here, so I am just so pleased for this session today. I cannot believe today is already the last session in celebration of National Volunteer Week. So for those of you who don't know the Career Advising and Transition Services, we are the career services unit that supports and empowers students, alumni, prospective students, the SCS community, the School of Continuing Studies community, as well as prospective students in their current careers, in transition to new careers, and essentially in creating meaningful communities. So we're a dynamic community. We bring dynamic, engaging, and inclusive approaches in our work, in the workshops and in the initiatives that we organize. In honor of this year's Volunteers Canada National Volunteer Week, the theme being the value of one, the power of many, CATS has really organized a series of events in celebrating the value of volunteers. Just 3 reasons why we've chosen to celebrate volunteers. We truly value, the first being we truly value our own volunteers at CATS and at SCS. Volunteers have been amazingly generous with their time, their energy, and incredible attitude in terms of sharing their skills, their time with CATS during live events, during workshops, whether that be, pre-COVID in real events or in online initiatives. We've seen time and time again how our community of professionals have had their own careers really positively transformed, positively impacted by volunteering opportunities. And so we know that wherever you are in your career, or even wherever you are in your life, volunteering has played such a core role in building connections, in building skills, and in essentially creating confidence while engaging in meaningful community work. And lastly, volunteers are at the core of the vibrant CATS community, and we could not be more grateful for volunteers and their amazing, the amazing work that they do. So finally, I would like to welcome this session's moderator. Anna Milik is, for those of you who don't know Anna already, she is a Montreal-based community organizer. She's a reproductive rights advocate and lifelong learner. She has most recently been named Montrealer of the Month. She is currently responsible for all aspects of programming, of administration, and development of the McGill Community for Lifelong Learning and community outreach at the McGill School of Continuing Studies. She's also a part-time student at Concordia University's Simone de Beauvoir Institute. I personally work with Anna through CATS. We all do through CATS, and Anna is probably one of the most, or the most committed, hardworking, just amazing individual who is always such a pleasure to work with because she's so passionate and always just has, her heart and her mind totally aligned to her work. And it's just a pleasure to be with Anna today. Thank you so much, Anna, for organizing this amazing panel discussion.
Thanks, Emily. You make me blush. I feel like in this context where, as much as I love my work, I'm not volunteering at MCLL, and so many of these people who have joined us online are, and that is something so special and something that I hope we get to honor and celebrate today. And I'm so grateful to you, Emily, and to your team for enabling this for us, for helping us with that amazing video. Diana, everybody loves it. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone who contributed to the video. It's on our YouTube channel, and I've shared it within the invitation for this event. I hope you've seen it. We can't say enough, and we can't do enough, and we can't celebrate you enough for everything you've been doing in the past 30-something years, and especially in the past year. Thank you for joining us for this session, and the panelists, thank you for volunteering. It's not easy to show up on screen and pour your heart out and talk about all these things. We all derive a great sense of pleasure and satisfaction, but it also comes with a little bit of stress and anxiety. At least for me, there is this anticipation, and sometimes I feel I don't need anything additional. Life is stressful as it is. But then after the events are over, it does feel good. I'm just very, very briefly, for the ones who are not part of MCLL, so McGill Community for Lifelong Learning, we are a volunteer-run community of over 1,000 senior learners, lifelong learners, and this community is run and managed by a council, is elected from the membership, and learning concept is based on peer learning. So anyone who wants to continue learning for the joy of it, who want to share their knowledge, their ideas, their experience and interest with each other, to MCLL. Emily called me a moderator, and that's a title that I will appropriate occasion with a lot of pride, because our study groups are led by moderators, and they moderate rather than teach. And we have people from all walks of life that contribute, and they make this community vibrant and vital, and just a joy to be part of. And yes, so when we were no longer able to meet in person, we were unsure about what's going to happen with, but we found a way. This member who at the end of our annual general meeting, Marianne Monjou, said MCLL way, and we have found a way. Our program has continued. Our membership, we maintain the contact people who cannot join us or they don't want to use the technology. And so now I'm going to invite this to how did we do this, to tell you about themselves, their MCLL, and we felt that we would really like to open this panel jury, because professional background, she's to open this panel. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to answer the same question, starting with Marjorie. A bit about yourself and about your volunteering experience at MCLL.
Hi there, everybody. And the first thing I want to do is give a great big thanks to Cats, and to, although Bettino, my cat, is very offended that you didn't mention him as part of the Cats team. I'm an MCLL volunteer. I've moderated several workshops, but I'm also presently employed as a project manager at the Réseau de l'Action Bénévole du Québec. The Réseau de l'Action Bénévole oversees all aspects of volunteering in Quebec, and I'm presently working on a study project of the effect of the pandemic on volunteers 70 and over, who were told to stay at home and not volunteer. A hell of a lot of us disobeyed, and I'm really glad we did, because a whole lot of volunteers are out there right now. And I guess I wanted to speak to volunteerism in general before I segued into McGill. because the first volunteer bureau in Canada was started in Montreal in 1946. Fun fact. And I think volunteerism has so much changed over the ages. It used to be started by it was started by the Junior League of Montreal and la Ligue des Femmes de Montréal. So you had to be a member of high society, la haute société, le gratin, to become a volunteer, because volunteering was all about how the fortunate were helping the unfortunate. And I'm deliberately using a dramatic voice because that's what it was all about. Volunteering today in MCLL is a perfect example. It's ever so much more democratic. Everybody volunteers and everybody needs volunteers. If I were to ask all of you to raise your hands, those of you who have benefited from the services of a volunteer in the past year, could you raise your hands, please? It's a trick question. Yes, good, you got it, you all have. If you have grandchildren in amateur sports, if you're a member of MCLL, if you've ever been to a hospital, as we speak right now, there are people delivering Meals on Wheels to frail seniors. There are people in hospitals helping people get directions to visit their loved ones. Volunteering is a 24-hour thing. It's a democratic thing. One day I help, and one day somebody helps me. And I think that's the most wonderful thing. And I wanted to give a virtual flower to everybody who volunteers here. I'd cover you in flowers if I could, because it's absolutely fantastic. And what I want to say about MCLL, it was a bit lyric. I remember one of my courses, one of the ladies who joined in, one of the study group, she said, you know, I used to work in McGill. And I saw all these old people and I wondered where on earth they were going. They all looked pretty happy. And she said, now I'm one of them. And I thought that was so cool, because I think the great thing about McGill and the concept of peer learning is that we're helping each other. However, and that's where a very important parenthesis is necessary. It's necessary that these volunteers be managed under the auspices of an organization, which is MCLL. And thank heaven we have Katz to help us and we have Anna to help us, because volunteers need to be not managed in the sense of managing a herd of cows or whatever, but managed in the sense of schedules, of deciding who's going to do the study group. And we need paid staff to help. Volunteering is not a totally cheap labor. It's not free. It's all about coming from the heart, and it's all about being democratic. And I think MCLL offers that opportunity. And I think a lot of people like me, when we went into MCLL, it was all about, oh, I want to learn and I want to discuss. And then, whoops, we started making friends. We started meeting people outside of McGill. We started going out for coffee with a few people. We learned new opportunities and we went to see movies that were recommended. So it really, this volunteer thing opened up. It's like a flower opening up in people's lives, because often when you retire, you'll go have your retirement party and people will say, oh, well, goodbye, keep in touch, you know. And you come back and things have changed and you're bothering, you know, you sense that you're welcome, but not so much. So that I think it's good that we find occupations. Or I remember one of the posters we had made for Volunteer Week a few years ago was keep Granny off the streets, get her volunteering. Because volunteering really, and that's an important fact for those of us who are no longer in our first youth, as it were, I'm being diplomatic, is that volunteers live on average, they've done studies 3 years longer than non-volunteers. It's good for your heart, it's good for your health, it's good for your blood pressure, and it's good for your morale. So hell, volunteer, folks. That's what it's all about. So I will now give the floor to my fellow panelists and be glad to answer any questions later.
Thanks so much, Marge. That's like that's really the message that we want to also reciprocity and horizontality and interpersonal relations integrated into volunteering experience, rather than promoting that helping the needy. And it's a way of living, a way of integrating both self and collective care. So much. Debbie, are you there? You might be still muted. Oh, no.
You can see me and now you can hear me. Okay. Thanks, Anna. I just want to warn everybody, I had to change venues because my internet is a little unstable. So I hope you can hear me throughout and I'm not choppy. So Marjorie, that was a very inspiring talk. I just want to point out that Anna emailed the 4 panelists this morning at 4 a.m. And I can tell you that as a volunteer, I'm not sending any emails at 4 a.m. I used to do that as an employee, but not as a volunteer. So thank you, Anna, for organizing us. And I think when we had a bit of a, not a practice session or a dry run, but we had a bit of a meeting of the minds last week with Anna about what we were going to say today, how we were going to proceed. And I got to thinking about, the 4 reasons that I've volunteered in my life. And I'd like to hear from some of you also, like whether you agree with these, whether there's more that I've forgotten, but I'm going to go through each of them and with my own volunteering experience. One is volunteering that's blatantly self-serving, which is, and I'll explain that in a minute. One is volunteering for my kids' schools, activities. I think, Marjorie, you alluded to that. One is volunteering, and Anna mentioned this, volunteering just simply for the joy of it, which is, of course, MCLL. That's kind of the motto for MCLL, right? And the other volunteering is just totally altruism. It's giving, not taking. I think, that give-take balance, has to be there for volunteering. You have to enjoy it. But purely altruistic volunteering, I would argue, is actually one way, but you may not agree. So let me just go through the blatantly self-serving volunteerism. I guess coming from an HR background, I've told people a million times how important it is to show volunteering on your CV. And when I volunteered as an employee, I also wanted to show my boss that I was so very engaged in my work that I wanted to do it for free outside of working hours. So I joined several professional organizations relating to my work, and I enjoyed the learning and mentoring that I took. And then as I gained expertise and experience, I became a speaker at conferences and a mentor for others. So there was the giving. So there's give and there's take. Then in terms of volunteering for my kids' schools and activities, because I was working and I wasn't available during the day, I couldn't volunteer in the library or participate with Pizza Fridays or anything like that. But I still suffered from mother's guilt. And I felt that I had to do something for the schools where my kids were. So I helped with fundraising, various initiatives and projects that the public funds would not cover. Those things that are nice to have. And again, I don't think this volunteering was really truly altruistic. There was a lot of yes, giving of my time, giving of my experience, but there was actually a take aspect to it too. I got to know the senior administration of my kids' schools, which was a real advantage for my kids, who were not just a number at the school with 900 other people. The principal and the staff in the school knew that I was a VIP, which is, it's a very important person, but it's also a volunteer important person. So I think we got some cred, I guess, street cred, if you like, for me doing that. Volunteering for the joy of it, well, I worked at the School of Continuing Studies in Alumni Relations and Development, and I became very interested because I was starting to become the age when I would be considering joining MCLL, and it was called at the time McGill Institute for Learning and Retirement. I think the Community for Lifelong Learning is a much nicer name, but MCLL keeps retirees active, engaged, and learning. And so when I retired 2 years ago, it was a no-brainer for me to join MCLL. And also, I mean, you may have seen on my screen, I'm also involved in MURA, the McGill University Retirees Association, because I did work at McGill for about 40 years, give or take. So I started at MCLL by taking a couple of courses, documentaries and discussions, stories of life, creative writing. And since I had always wanted to become a journalist and a writer since grade 9, I, of course, joined Roz Paris's MCLL workshop. It was creative writing. And so, and the course, I mean, I think just made me write, made me stretch. And so volunteer, the opportunity to volunteer and help Roz once we went from an in-person format to a Zoom format was a no-brainer for me. Lastly, there's volunteering to do good, to help those who are underprivileged in some way. And I think this kind of volunteering is truly altruistic. And it's giving without expecting anything, any special privilege in return. Although I could argue that it does fill some kind of helping gene that humanity, that humans, that we all should have. So I have volunteered as a big sister for a preteen living in a group foster home. I fostered a teenager for 1 year officially, and then for the past 5 years unofficially, with nothing in return except for seeing how resilient and high functioning my foster daughter has become. So all that to say, I have gained so much insight, skills, perspectives by volunteering, and I encourage you all to try it and share some of the highlights of your volunteer experiences with us. I think it adds value to your life that a paying job may or may not do, and it stretches you and pulls you out of your comfort zone. So on to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, and thank you for bringing up some critical questions and complex nature of volunteering. I honestly envy the school where you were involved in fundraising. And I remember when you worked at SES, how we at MCLL felt that you were doing more, like that you were genuinely involved and invested at MCLL. We loved working with you, and then we were so thrilled when you joined us after you stopped working at MCLL. Okay, so that was ladies first. John Filvinci.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Anna. You did a fantastic work all the time, and I would say that you are a great follower of the original people with Fiona Clark and Caroline Ruffman, who were, of course, myself being one of the probably oldest member of MCLL, MILR. I joined in 1994. I don't believe it. It's 27 years that I have been in MCLL, MILR. And from the very beginning, I decided, when I retired at that time, early retirement, I decided to contribute to people who have also the same interests about learning, studying, and looking into different parts of their, put it this way, history and everything else. So I, as I said, joined a study group in 1994, and I don't think I have stopped since that time. During the 27 years, I think I moderated around 80 or more different study groups, and also gave more than 100 lectures of Friday lectures and wonderful Wednesday lectures. Actually, I served at MILR as a curriculum chair for several years. And during that time, we introduced actually the Friday lectures and the wonderful Wednesdays. Against quite a lot of pressure, people got saying that, well, we shouldn't have lectures because we are really a peer learning group and it will dilute the peer learning experience. It has not. But it seemed to be very, very popular. And I think that we were very, very lucky that we were able to have a large number of people who followed and did that. So that was way back in 2000 or something like that. I also volunteered and so on in some other organizations. For instance, Cummings Center, where I also gave some lectures and so on. Also in Encore, which is another group of people, elderly people who are giving or are interested in that. I did some work for the University of Sherbrooke up in Mont-Tremblant, where they had a group for English-speaking people, and did some other little stuff for several other organizations. So I am more or less volunteering, but my volunteering thing is very one-sided, if you want to. I can't say like Debbie that I did all the things for schools and whatnot, but I think that what I contributed probably to MCLL, MIR, is probably a reasonable stuff, which I enjoyed very much, and I hope that other people enjoyed it too. During all these times, we had a large number of different study groups. Some of the study groups actually were 2 sessions. There was one study group which had 3 sessions at the same time about Mussolini. I remember that was a long, long time ago. So again, I think that I will try to continue that volunteering here for as long as I probably can. And actually, I'm already committed for probably a couple of more years for a certain series, which I'm doing now on history of before the First World War, cultural history, basically. Anyway, I think that the peer learning at MCLL is one of the most wonderful things which I can imagine, because we are getting people into our groups who never probably even thought of giving a presentation. And the presentations are such wide variety. There are some really professional presentations, other people who are just the very first time they did that, a little bit of arm twisting, of course, for people to have to do it. But I think that it gives them a wonderful feeling of they probably at that time know most of the subject of nearly everybody in the group. And that gives them a confidence. And I think that to install that confidence in everybody is really a wonderful part of this peer learning volunteering group. So as I say, I'm very glad that I could do that for such a long time. And hopefully I will continue to be part of MCLL as long as probably my health and so on will allow me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Don. Honestly, it was such an honor to be called one of the originals by you. Thank you for that. And I was just opening, when Don says different topics, that you have no idea about the spectrum of topics. I just pulled out quickly the statistics that I have in our system. John did study groups on astronomy, on technology, is it good and evil, genetics, do we have a free will, topics in today's science, London and Britain in 1914 to 1945, New York City also in the 19th century, Hungary between East and West, space and time, dark ages, Phoenicians, Victorian rivals, 1938, Gothic cathedrals, and I can just go on and on. This spreadsheet, I think if I would print it, it would take like 3 or 4 pages. So thank you so much for sharing your perspective. Brian, hi Brian.
Hi. Yeah, I mean, I'm just sort of speechless after following these wonderful exposés of what people have been doing. Because I've had an interesting experience as we prepared for this a little bit on the weekend and then listening to my 3 predecessors. Yeah, it's really hit me. I never knew that I was a volunteer. Because what I have been doing at MCLL I didn't think of it as volunteering. I suppose to put it, in Debbie's context, there wasn't a lot of altruism involved. I did it because it was interesting, it was fun, it certainly kept me off the streets. And I'm just looking at the faces around here, and there are people I'd never I never knew, and I've also had the wonderful experience of occasionally bump into somebody that I knew back in the 70s. And even took a study group from somebody with whom I played rugby in God forbid, 1962. I'm not playing rugby still. Yeah, thinking back, I suppose I'm an engineer by training and got a further degree in economics and the fancy analysis. And I worked in economic development and so on for a long time. And I think I was involved, I was always in, for many of the reasons that Debbie mentioned, I tried to get on the school committees and things of my son, now sons. And then I got involved in a number of efforts. Through that, my son was in high school. It's actually in the high school of Montreal at what was called FACE. Some of you may know FACE. And the school board wanted to kick them out. And so I got involved with some parents and to stop that initiative, to keep them there. And I think for a long time they were very successful. I think they've now moved to a better facility. But I got in, from there, I kind of got involved in some community development organizations. When I was living in NDG, I think I served a year on the NDG Community Council and was just getting in and feeling comfortable there when we moved to Outremont. So they didn't have a community council in Outremont, which is their loss. And then I decided I better concentrate on my career for a while. And then finally realized that my career was sort of winding down. 2017, in the fall, I started getting involved with MCLL. From there, yeah, I did study groups and got active in making presentations and all that good stuff. And then one day I heard from what I call McGill's greatest resource, MCLL's greatest resource, who is Anna, of course. She had been to a cocktail party, I think, and she had met a professor from the business school who was originally from Ghana and was looking to see how he could link himself and his activities and his students with MCLL. And that led to a study group that we have had now for 2 or 3 years. And some of the faces I see around here today have been involved in that study group, where the mix of MCLL and students, actual live students, active students at McGill, but whose origins are from Africa or who are interested in Africa. And from that has led to some mentoring initiatives, which again, I understand that mentoring is volunteering. We've helped, about 5 or 6 of us have been working various points in time to help these students prepare their presentations for various competitions, particularly MasterCard Foundation startup competition, and the something called the Dobson Cup, which is also a startup competition. And it's really fabulous to see the students. They come in at the beginning, the first session, I think we've had 2 sessions this year, and then they went off and made the finals. First session, there was one young man who was actually online from Uganda. And he took 15 minutes to make his 5-minute presentation. And he was sort of all over the map. But he had he had a good project. He then came back he made it to Montreal. He took 10 minutes to make his 5-minute presentation. And he was a little bit off the map. Well, he ended up winning the thing with a 4-minute pitch, which is, of course, absolutely perfect. And I would like to think that the involvement of our team as it became really helped him. And then suddenly he won, first prize was $10,000, which is not bad. And actually I learned yesterday that another one of the students' groups had not only won or come second in the MasterCard Foundation competition, but had come second in the sort of McGill world-wide system for the Dobson Cup, which is more prestigious and more competition in the environmental project segment. She came in second to her group. So that's something that we have usefully done. We are looking now to seeing how we can spin that out a little more formally, linking with CATS, and helping other students. The MasterCard Foundation arrangement brings over, I don't know how many students they bring over each year, but I would say there are probably 10 of them each year at McGill. And it's been really fascinating to be involved with this. And also, of course, as I guess we go along, being involved with MCLL, the last 2 weeks, I've been taking 3 study groups, I think. I am co-moderating the study group between the Calgary Lifelong Learning Association and the group from MCLL on Alberta and Quebec similarities and differences. And I thought that retirement was something when you sit back and do nothing. I don't think I've worked so hard in the last 2 weeks. So it's been a lot of fun. And yeah, let's keep up the good work, guys. I'm just looking around here, and I'm always reminded my late mother, who passed away at the age of 97, she used to talk about how she met all these young people. And I don't think we qualify yet for what she saw as young people, which was 80-year-olds and so on. Anyway, okay, life's been great, and let's keep it on. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, your involvement, and also I know that Tony Frayne was also involved at MCLL through those intergenerational and also interinstitutional initiatives. Absolutely. Has been really excited and inspirational. And it was actually Emily right here, Emily from CATS, who introduced us to Professor Ni Adi, and then we took that relationship further. So we can take this opportunity to thank her.
That's the proof that you have to go to receptions, guys. Let's get back being able to do that. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah.
And I'm glad, and not just that, you also reminded me that the MCLL volunteers go and volunteer for SCS, and they take part in the Speak program and Parlons Français program, and do language exchange with the students, and then they take mentorship and the language exchange to a whole new level. I know that Denise Lord is a beloved adopted mom to so many of them, and then Julie and Tony take them to taste Saint-Viateur bagels, that Sandra Frisbee makes Christmas dinners and shares her wonderful garden with the students and opens up her house. So there is so much that MCLL volunteers do. I have a message from Dave Sherman, one of our longtime members and volunteers, who wants to share some of his thoughts.
Well, thank you very much, Anna. Everybody said wonderful things about you, so I totally agree with those sentiments. I would also like to say a few things. First of all, MCLL, without volunteers, it simply wouldn't be there. It exists because of the volunteers like John, like most of the people I see on the screen, Julie, you know, name there are many people that make it work, without which there'd be absolutely no MCLL at all. That's one thing. I've done moderation. I started in 2004 was it? My God. So most of the years I've had given a group and taken one or maybe more groups. The other thing, so both moderating and participating now, a thing that also was a spin-off of this, which is volunteering, is the South Shore here, and I'm in St. Lambert, and we have what is called lifelong learning, or 3L program in one of the local high schools, St. Lambert Elementary High School, which I'm not primary school, it's not a high school. But the fact is, it's now, amazingly enough, close to 10 years since we've been doing it. It's a spin-off from MCLL. It was started by myself and Judith and a couple of other people. And the first group we did was basically to take a group from MCLL and just repeat it on the South Shore with about 10 days notice. We had 25 people in the group. Well, since then, of course, in the last year, the same problem has happened there as has happened at MCLL. The whole pandemic problem is certainly a bit of a, shall we say, a downer in terms of this kind of a group, because I like it. I'm very much used to Zoom now. I like it a lot. It's got a lot of huge advantages, but guess what? It's not the same as sitting in a group like with John Philvinci in the class and 25 or 20 other people. And the one thing I miss is not only that, almost as much, which is I learned way back when I first started, is the whole idea of interacting with the folks in the hall, in the lounge, and seeing them in all other different kinds of locations when you're out to a concert or something else. Getting back to that will be extremely important to me. And I would like to finish by one other event, which of course I've been volunteering for and involved with for, now it's the 10th year. You can all guess which one this is if you know me. Bloomsday Montreal Festival, which is now the second largest festival of Bloomsday and Joyce and Irish literature in the world. Not just in this country, because there's effectively only one or two left in this country. A one-day shot thing they do in Toronto and a few others. So we've managed to take this from, may I add, from a group that I gave 11 years ago at MCLL on Ulysses, the Joyce version of Ulysses, which turned out to be quite interesting, even though it was a mere 10 weeks. And this is well, if you know Ulysses, it's effectively impossible to do that book in 10 weeks or 20 hours. But you know what came out of it? The idea of Bloomsday. It came from McGill, it came from this group. And we started it up in January. And so this is now its 10th iteration this year. And in the last year, around a year ago, March, there was this consternation of what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Which I think MCL has done really, really well. They've done a superb job in taking it on and not giving up and going back and getting involved with Zoom and all that kind of technology. And for a short while, in March, April last year, people were saying, we can't do it, we can't do it. And guess what? We did it anyway. because we did what you guys have done, what we, I should say we, because it's all of us, have done. And we produced a festival that was 5 days, over 5 days. None of it was physically in front of audiences, but we did it. We had, in fact, in some of the Zoom sessions, we had hundreds, not just, but we had a lot of people tuning into it, because there is an advantage to Zoom, and that is, for instance, we had a session where we had Maurice Podbury, who started Centaur Theatre 50 years ago, and he lives in South Africa. He's still there in South Africa, but he was part of one of the people. There was a guy from Trieste, an expert in Joyce. There was a number of people from all over the world, a brilliant translator in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. This is just an example of the things you can do with Zoom, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to do another session. We're going to do our 5-day session, July, I think it's 12th to the 16th, always ending on the 16th, because that's the actual day that Mr. Leopold Bloom walked around Dublin in 1904, and he's the central character, of course, in Ulysses. So I would say, yes, volunteering is extremely helpful, very, I get a lot out of it. I have not attended very many sessions, Zoom sessions for this group, but the fact is that without volunteers, Bloomsday wouldn't exist either. And for example, my darling wife did all the grants applications, because without money, you don't have these festivals. And guess what? They're all due like next week. Remember that famous 30th of April deadline for your tax, which I'll probably not meet, because what I have to meet is the deadline for the grant application for next year. You miss that, you don't get. This is how much money you get if you miss their deadline, 0. So the fact is that is a part of the volunteering. It's pushed me out of thinking about other things, shall we say, which some of you are probably aware of, and pushed me into the real nitty gritty, again, getting back into the whole Bloomsday thing. But to me, the objective way back, and I don't know, Debbie's talked about why you would volunteer. From that group of 10 years ago, the idea was, let's try to see if we can make this book and Joyce and other Irish literature and other cultural things that are Irish more available, and more people will know about them. Well, I think after 10 years, there are probably way more people that have read, understood, and participated in this kind of stuff than there were back then. And therefore, I think we've met an objective, just like MCLL has for, what, 40 years is it now? How many years is it? And that we've run MCLL, I would think at least 30.
Yeah, we celebrated the 30th anniversary a couple of years ago. It was
okay, so yeah, exactly. So it's a huge benefit to the people. And as I said, volunteers like John, like Brian, like lots of other people have made it, like Lorne, looking down there, Lorne and other people, they've all made this work. I mean, Judith and I were on the MCLL board. Judith always gave. There wasn't one session she didn't miss, giving and or taking a group of at MCLL. And she loved it. And by the way, at the South Shore groups, we've done books on things on poetry and science. Usually I did stuff on science and or literature, like I'm interested in both. But you know what? It's essential, and we have to keep it going, and I'm glad to see that we're going to do that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. Thank you. And Judith was a volunteer coordinator. She's a volunteer coordinator at MCLL. And yeah, people do say about the two of you that you're a force of nature, and you sure know how to organize, how to start a movement. And thank you for reminding us that, yeah, we inspired so many other organizations and initiatives, and we're currently collaborating with some of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have some questions, but I would really like to hear from, I know that so many of you here have amazing perspectives and experiences to share. I know we have our board members here, our moderators, participants. Would anyone like to unmute themselves and share? Jeff.
Hi. Well, first of all, I want to thank, it was actually Anna who invited me to this meeting today, and I very much appreciate it. I've enjoyed every moment of it. I feel like the baby of the group, as I'm a relatively new member to MCLL. I only joined MCLL back in 2017. And it certainly wasn't for the, there was no altruistic reason for me doing so. In fact, it was a very selfish reason. I had heard by word of mouth from people that I know of just how fantastic MCLL is. And you have to join at least one study group, which I did in the fall of 2017. And from that point, I never looked back, because over the course of the next year, I participated in 8 other study groups until I came to the realization that, and I was encouraged to do so, maybe I should moderate my own study group, which I did from January 2019 to the end of last year on the Trump presidency. And it was a type of study group called the Moderator Presentation Group, and where the moderator makes all the presentations, but does it in a fashion where there's going to be full participation in terms of discussion. I found myself spending 30 to 40 hours of a week of my time just to get ready for each session in terms of the research that I had to do and putting together the presentation. I never thought of it as work, but rather of loving every single moment that I did. So I guess that's, it's part of volunteering. And throughout that period, I was asked and nominated to the executive as vice president. And I had that opportunity to do so over the past year, working with a phenomenal group of people, and we accomplished so much over the past year. And now at the most recent AGM 2 weeks ago, I'm now president, and I officially take over my duties as of middle of June. One final note, and this is for you, Anna. I'm not sure you remember this, but I certainly do. But it was my first encounter with you. I walked into the office just totally frustrated, prepared to bang my head against the wall because I couldn't get my username or password. And you sat down with me, and in your very patient manner, Anna, walked me through it. And from that point, there was no turning back. I've had a real opportunity to work with Anna over the past year. We worked together on a task force, on the hybrid strategy task force. And I just can't say enough about her. Your work ethic, your dedication, your knowledge, experience, you just make it an absolute joy to work with you. So I wasn't planning to speak today, but thank you for the opportunity of Anna for giving me that opportunity to do so. And that's it.
Anna, I'm getting a halo ready for you.
Yeah.
No, Jeff, this is really humbling. Thank you. And yes, like if I can say, if there's a silver lining of the Zoom, is that I don't have to deal with the equipment anymore. There is no emergencies, and but we have an army of hosts. That's a new role that emerged through the pandemic, and that was very essential in MCLL's transition to online. platform is that we have now hosts, people who volunteer to just take care of the technical aspects of digital learning and literacy. So they not only help the moderators, they also organize one-on-one sessions with the members if they need help joining. So that's something really amazing, and that should not go unacknowledged. It's so heartwarming to hear you all speak. I remember this is the second workshop that I'm doing this week, and for the first one I was preparing and stressing out and researching and didn't know how it's gonna go. And when I talked to Emily about this one, I was like, hey, this is gonna run itself. It's just gonna come together, because when you bring together people who are really invested and really care about something, it just flows. So now I hope I'll have another speaker. Don't jinx it. Again, you are welcome to ask questions and you're welcome to share. So any takers?
Emily was talking, yeah.
Oh, I did have a question, but I saw a hand up
Yes.
by, I think, Carolyn?
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes.
Oh, you just need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, I'll get closer. I just wanted to say that this is taking place, this honoring is taking place on Earth Day. And I think how appropriate, because our Earth nurtures, it gives, we have to, you know, it's a give, it's reciprocal. And it's a beautiful process, or at least we have to make sure, and we have to be very intentional now to ensure that the nurturing, there's more from us, because we've taken so much. And I think that's applicable. It's a metaphor for me that's applicable to volunteering. But I do want to say, oops, I need my phone open. I came to MCLL with great excitement when I finally finished my working career, with great excitement, because I was introduced by my dear friend, Deanna Silver. And, you know, the whole idea, I had no time for several years to do it. And then the day came and I was really excited. And the course, which was given by somebody somebody I knew on China, somehow magically filled up, and I couldn't get in. In any case, it's another reason why Anna is so special, because she made that happen. She made that happen through the intervention of somebody, and it was very significant to me. So I just want to say how much that I've been enriched. Certainly not only by MC, I'm sorry, I have brain fog from COVID, so you have to excuse my stuttering. But in any case, just saying, it is just a wonderful enrichment, and thank you to everyone who's involved, truly.
Thank you, Caroline. Emily, you said you have a question.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Caroline. And I hadn't realized that today is actually Earth Day. So thanks for reminding us about such an important day. Absolutely. My question is about curiosity, specifically to John, but of course open to anyone. We talk so much about curiosity being so important these days in terms of learning and growing. And you're definitely an example of that. As Anna mentioned, you've hosted sessions and study groups on all sorts of different topics, from astronomy, London and Britain, 1940s, 45, space and time. Incredible. You're obviously passionately curious, and that reflects your involvement also with MCLL. What makes you so curious, and what's your process in learning something new?
Well, thank you, Emily, calling. But before I answer it, I want to thank especially now other volunteers who are the actually hosts, because without the hosts, I think we couldn't do that type of Zoom business. And I know that my hosts are all very, very wonderful, and they are taking part of the work and actually make my life very much easier. So thank you very much, all the hosts, whether it's for the study groups or lectures or so on. As far as Emily's question is concerned, I think I had a curiosity about the world, about history, about all the type of thing, which I had since very early childhood. And I recall when I was actually in bed once with a horrible, I think it was measles or something like that, with high temperatures, I had decided to look through an encyclopedia, even though, because it didn't know what else to do. So I think that already at that time, my interest in lots of things in the world and so on came in. Another thing which is very important as I'm concerned, my curiosity, is my attitude in some way toward the political thing in the world. I came from Hungary, and there I unfortunately had to go through the right-wing fascism and the left-wing communism. It taught me about a horrible hate of all types of things which are too far to the left or too far to the right. I try to be as much. So what interests me very much is to make sure in history, to pick up the thing and to make sure that people can realize how wonderful and how absolutely unique is our democracy and our freedom here, and our freedom of speech and freedom of religion, freedom of what we have. And we have to maintain those, because there is always a chance that somewhere from either the left or the right, there are going to be attacks. So my attitude is that as long as I can actually bring down the idea that freedom of speech and freedom of beliefs and actually learning is important, and the curiosity about the world and the curiosity about everything is there, I am going to continue as long as I can. And I think that basically drives my curiosity and my attitude also toward different type of historical, cultural, and scientific things. Actually, I even had some study groups on music, I recall. I did one on Franz Liszt. I did one on Wagner operas and so on. So, you know, I am curiosity about lots of things and so on. But I'm very glad that I always part of MCLL and the peer learning thing. And so many people, through the years contributed to the study groups. And I can't thank them enough.
Thank you. And I love how you're so driven by your own curiosity and wanting to share that with others and with the MCLL group. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. I think we're starting to get a bit of attrition. I think going too much over 1 hour on Zoom could be a lot, even though the day is not that great and the sun is not tempting us to go out. But maybe we can take one more question or one more comment, testimonial, sharing. Marjorie. And Denise.
I'll let Denise go. I'll let Denise go. She didn't intervene yet. Go ahead, Denise.
I just wanted to say that, John, you also did a debate on climate change at MCLL against Dennis Creamer. Remember that? John?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, you had done a debate on climate change with Dennis Creamer.
Oh, yes. I did some work.
I highly appreciate it.
And you see, again, I am going against the generally accepted attitudes. Quite often I am what people would say today, a horrible skeptic. And I know that lots of people are very much opposed to that type of thing, but I am looking at it from a scientific point of view. Yes. And look at history. And I look at all the things which lots of people today forget that what happened in the past, or what is really important in climate. The sun is the one which is really giving us life and making it possible for life on Earth. And we all forget that how important really is what the sun is doing to us. So my problem with climate is really all looking at the sun and decide that depending on what it does, it will happen and actually will affect us much more than what we are doing. We are tiny little people here on Earth compared to the natural, enormous natural effects of the sun.
Absolutely.
But anyway, that's about climate change.
And Marjorie, can you?
I guess le mot de la fin for me is if any of you do not volunteer and are considering volunteering, go ahead and do it. It's absolutely amazing. It's good for the health. It's good for morale. And we've never more, according to me, needed this human contact because we're deprived of it in many ways. And if you can't volunteer officially, look around and find a neighbor who's weak or fragile and give her some help. With 4 friends of mine, we're delivering 30 flower baskets to ladies on Mother's Day who are total isolated shut-ins. So if you know anyone around us, we're lucky, we're the healthy, active seniors, but if you know some very frail people who are at home alone, please think about them because there's never been more of a need to help counter isolation. So please go ahead and do it. Thank you so much to all the volunteers. And once again, a flower from society.
I think this is a perfect closure, isn't it? Well, thank you. Thanks again.
Thanks, Anna.
David, Dave, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a little fast comment. One of the people that benefits the most out of these sessions is the actual moderator. I can prepare the stuff. I make an outline, and when and if, and John knows this more than anyone after all these sessions, you get participation, and we usually get fairly, not 100%, but you do get participation. And this adds a huge amount of knowledge to stuff that I either hadn't thought of or hadn't, planned in direct, especially, by the way, in groups that are literature groups. You can give a session on Ulysses and think you know a lot about it until suddenly, out of 20 people, there's 10 or 5 or whatever who say, but isn't it, this is what he meant? Isn't this what's there? Like the short story groups that Judith gave with Maggie Benfield. It's amazing. It's amazing how much you can get out of that group of people. So the learner is not only the people in the group, it's as someone told me 25 years ago, to teach is to learn.
Absolutely.
Well, although it may not be called teaching, it's you learn. And so it's a huge benefit to the moderator to be involved in this. And I will come back at sometime in the near future and not just—
You said this in public and it's recorded.
Oh,
and
I'm ready. I'll do it, but not right now. I'm so involved with other stuff that it's, whatever. Yes, I will be involved, Anna, I assure you.
You're accountable to all of us.
And Denise has something to say.
Okay, I just want to say one last thing. My motto in life is to try to make a difference. And I do that almost every day to try to make a difference. And I think that volunteering allows you to make a difference, and positive difference, obviously. And you mentioned, Anna, the SPEAK program and how I am the mother of many. I should say I'm the grandmother of many because they're young enough to be my grandchildren. But how I got involved in that, I love young people. I'm an ESL teacher. And I saw that they needed a lot more than just learning English with me. they were lonely. These kids were lonely. And they told me, they said, we miss our mom. And I told them, I said, well, I'll be your Canadian mom. And they took it from there. And to this day, I mean, some of them I've had over the years. I'm not telling them what to do, but I'm there to listen to them if they need. And we get together. At one point they said, well, we don't have a family. And I said, well, let's create one. So I got the students together. We have a family and they communicate. They help one another out. They, you know, they have their coordinates and it really works well. And I must say, give and take. During the pandemic, these kids have phoned me every week, finding out, do you need anything, Denise? Don't go out, don't go out. And they've been there for me. I've been there for them too as well, but it's a give and take. And this is one of the things that I did in my life that I'm the most proud of, because I did make a difference in these young people's lives. And I want them to go back to their country with a positive story to tell and say, we had a family in Canada. I'm their Canadian mom. I met their parents. Their parents are wonderful. They're very appreciative, as I would be if I had children in a foreign country and somebody would more or less be there for them. And it's been a wonderful experience for me, very much so, and also I think for them. So I wanted to share that with you.
Mm-hmm. And thanks, Anna and Emily. It's really been an interesting morning. Great work.
Thanks, Cats, for bringing us all together. You really makes us feel like we're part of SCS, and we always love working with you so much.
Thank you so much to you all. You've all been, we've learned so much from you today, but we also just should really have these regular discussions together with Cats, because it's just so filled with so much value, and you're so full of energy and inspiration. I'm just, I'm blown away by today's session. I can't imagine any other way to close off National Volunteer Week than with you all. You're an amazing, really amazing community. A very special thank you to today's panelists, Marjorie, John, Debbie, and Brian. And last but not least, our moderator, who is a real caring leader, and as was mentioned today, has an admirable work ethic. She's a true change maker. Anna, you consistently go above and beyond, and you brought, I mean, with MCLL since I think the beginning of the pandemic, about 400 lifelong learners currently online using online resources and connecting to Zoom. And I saw in the chat, I love Zoom now. I can't believe it. You're really a true change maker, and you're really, and today you brought together another 50 participants that have this meaningful conversation. To all the panelists and everybody else in this session today, you've all shared so many valuable perspectives. And I personally want to be all of you when I grow up, you know, like someone who's thirsty for knowledge, who's motivated to move out of my comfort zone and meet new people and share my knowledge and moderate study groups and engage in critical discussions, and always eager to be part of creating a meaningful community. So honestly, it's been such a pleasure learning from all of you, and I hope we can have more of these sessions.
Yes, thank you very much. It was an excellent session. And I'm polishing, I'm getting the halo ready. Don't worry. I'm coming to you soon, Anna. I guarantee.
I'll send you the proposal form after the session.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, folks. Nice to see you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Anna. Bye.
Happy National Volunteer Week, everyone.
Okay,
thank you for everything.
Bye. Thank you.